Do you know, it's easy, Wilf, obviously, right now, where we sit 23 points clear in the league. Everything in the garden seems to be rosy. But it hasn't always been under Gerrard's tenure, if that's a fair comment, because there's been a couple of times, obviously, after New Year, the ship seems to have sank a wee bit, a lot of the fans getting on Gerrard's back. But I don't think you can underestimate just what a job he has done. And also, we do have to say his backroom staff as well.
Yeah, I think he's done as Scott said, he's done a tremendous job. I mean, when he came in, he said it was going to be a project that would take, 3 or 4 years to get it right. And we all sort of accepted that. I mean, even going 10 years ago, if a Rangers manager came in and said, look, it's going to take me 3 years to win something, we'd all went, nah, you've not got 3 years. Get it done now, or, you're out the door. The progress has been season on season. There's certainly been progress. I mean, you just look at Europe. Europe's done them a huge favour. The fact that we've got into the group stages 3 seasons in a row. We've got out of it the last 2. Made the last 16 last year. That's bought them a lot of time, and it's also brought in a lot more money. So he's been a lot more fluid in the transfer market. And as Scott said, there was a sliding doors moment in March, and I think that sliding doors moment for me was football getting suspended because of COVID. Because we lost the cup quarter final to Hearts, then we lost to Hamilton, and it seriously looked like Mr. Gerrard was going to walk away. He's had a long, hard think, and then we came back. And as I've said a few times on various pods, the extended break that we had when they had actual time on the training pitch with the players meant that him and his backroom staff could get across exactly how they wanted to play, which is why I think we're ahead of the curve. We're probably 6 months ahead of where we really should be because they've had that extra time on the training field. And he's now got. I mean, you look at the bench. I mean, as Scott said, like this time last year we fell off a cliff, and it wasn't because the first 11 hasn't really changed that much. It's what's come on to back it up. The rest of the squad, that's now a lot stronger. You look at the bench. Yesterday, as we record this on Sunday, the Ross County game. I mean, the bench was. Everyone on that bench would probably walk into most teams in the Premier League. So that's the squad's got a lot better. And so, yeah, I mean, certainly for them. I mean, his record for 150 games is good. I mean, I think he's only had, 20 defeats, I think? And included in that's against, fairly good teams like Bayer Leverkusen and things like that. And then there's obviously early defeats as well. Early defeats to Celtic and things like that, which you've got to accept when he's only in the door 5 minutes with what he came into.
Do you know, I don't want to be too negative, because we're in a fantastic position. Look, I don't care what anybody says, right? We're going to win the league, right? We are. But Scott, Wolf made a good point there about Europe and also obviously the breakup with COVID. Do you think in some kind of strange way, again, I really don't want to sound too pessimistic, but do you think that saved his job?
Yeah. I do. I've mentioned it before. I think had we completed the second leg against Bayer Leverkusen, I think the board may have, come on, the board of guys like you and I, they will be talking. They will be thinking, right, okay, well, this isn't going as planned. I know that we've got to give him a chance, but this is the second year, right? And the team at the time didn't even look like they knew each other. But what's really interesting for me is not only did, that potentially, I might maybe be completely wrong, because what we're about to say will contradict myself, but if we completed that second leg against Bayer Leverkusen, got knocked out and he got sacked, didn't. Fast forward to the summer, we also saw an influx of investment into the playing staff, which in itself is a show of faith to Steven Gerrard. So there must have been a lot of talking going on behind the scenes. Either the board were convincing Gerrard to stay, or Gerrard was convincing the board that I'm the man for this job. I can do this. I've identified where it's gone wrong. But it's worked out for the best. Interestingly enough, everyone talks about what happened in the winter periods last month. And it's probably a combination, as Will said, the quality and the depth of the squad now, because these players on the bench are actually pushing for first team slots. They're not just guys making up the numbers that can do a job. They are guys that probably, if you look at likes of Cedric, will be playing first team football for a long period of time. But touching on what Ryan Kent said after the game yesterday, the pitch is very difficult to play on. It's very difficult for the likes of Ryan Kent to be dribbling past the players as he did in the months of August, September and October. And then we saw that drop off in later November, December, but we're still grinding out the wins. We've had to adapt our style. So it's more one-touch passing. We weren't necessarily always doing that in the earlier months, but we've adapted our style. And that's something that we couldn't cope with this time last season. Hence, I think we saw the drop-off because we didn't know what to do. We were still playing the same teams. We still had the same energy. We were still trying to do the same things. But physically, we weren't able to do that.
And, we've heard that, all the way down through the years, you had Arsene Wenger, who was a football kind of manager. He liked to get his teams down to play football. Jose Mourinho was this defensive manager. You've got certain managers who don't coach at all, who just sit back. Well, what kind of manager or coach is Steven Gerrard?
I don't think you could define what kind of manager he is yet, because he's only been in the job 5 minutes, really, in management terms. He's very much, to me, he's very much a management team manager. He always says it's not just about him, it's about, Michael Beale, Tom Culshaw, the doctor, all that. I mean, you even see when he gets his Manager of the Month awards, the photos that get made public are of him and the entire team. They're not just him standing with an award saying, "Look at me," apart from the media ones that have to do just with them with it. But the ones that Rangers put out, it's always him and the whole team. So I think you can't really define what sort of management style he's got because he's not been in the job long enough.
Do you agree with that, Scott?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough, right? And of course, the question that's always going to be asked, because I don't know if you guys have heard that Liverpool aren't doing too well right now. How long can we keep him, Scott? Or is that a question that we really shouldn't even be asking?
I mean, let me just check the score. I think they're 1-0 up at the moment, so we don't need to call your Jets. I mean, it's all in perspective because.
But it's always going to get asked.
Yeah, it is, but okay. I think we've all acknowledged that if Liverpool come calling, Gerrard's going walking. But in the same respect, Jurgen Klopp's got a lot of good faith at Liverpool, and if you think that it took him 2-3 years to get the first title and actually get his team, if we could be talking, they could go for a couple of years without winning the title. And let's if we actually take a look at Liverpool for a second, they're not doing too badly. They're not, they're not running away like we are or they have done in the previous seasons, but they're still near enough top of the pile. And I laugh across the city because if you take away our 2 victories against them, they're only a couple of points or a couple of draws away from a reasonable start to the season. It's just the fact that we have done so well, it exacerbates the pressure on them. But if you actually look at it like a rational point of view, they're not doing too badly. I mean, I'm loving the implosion, but the shoe was on the other foot. If you look at our numbers this time last season, we weren't doing too badly. It's the fact that they just kept pulling wins out of the hat, and it happens. This is football, and it happens.
And actually, well, see if we can be fair to us as Rangers as a club. I mean, apart from obviously Liverpool. I mean, if Liverpool come calling, I don't think any Rangers supporter could have a go at Gerrard for leaving because that is his boyhood club. But I think it's clear to everybody that he's extremely happy where he is. Yeah,
I think he is because he's had. I think it seems to be that everything he's been promised, he's had. The board promised to back him. They've backed him. The support, obviously, we love him. And I mean, the whole Liverpool thing, I don't think it's a coincidence that his contract runs out in 2024 and so does Jurgen Klopp's. And the two of them aren't notorious for walking out on contracts. I don't think that's a coincidence. But I also think that what was something that would possibly stop him going if Klopp did leave Liverpool early. I think what might stop Mr. Gerrard leaving us too early to go straight to Liverpool is what's happened with Frank Lampard at Chelsea. He did a year at Derby, then went back to where he's a hero, and it just isn't working for him. And they're now talking about sacking him. So he'll look at that and go, wait a minute, that could be me. Because he didn't have. Okay, he's got more managerial experience now than Frank Lampard had when he went to Chelsea. But that'll be something I think might be a telling factor in keeping him at Rangers till at least the end of his contract.
Bye.